Welcome everybody. My name is Ingmar Marquardt. I'm from Germany, 40 years old, and I know the 5 biological laws of nature, 5BL or GHK or GNM, since the turn of the millennium. And since 2010, I started to deepen this knowledge. Perhaps some of you already know my video series and extensive website Disease is Different, which I published in 2018 and which is available in more than 15 languages already. Or you've heard of our 5BN children adventure book, The Mystery of the Cursed Fleece, which I created together with the illustrator Bele Gröting and the co-author Elisabeth Strassert as joint venture, to provide an introduction for children into this exciting topic. And this book is already translated in a few languages as well. It is available in German, English, Dutch, and Serbian, and further translations are coming soon. These are Russian, French, and Italian. Yes, my practical GNM experience is based on my own family experiences, of course, then on my cases in my local study group, which I started in 2010, on years-long occasional 5BN analyses with clients, and also mainly on our practical courses. The most important one is the practical course Resolving Allergies, together with Thorsten Rüffer, where we helped to resolve over 50 allergies so far, and from which I want to introduce some cases today. But before that, I want to share some thoughts about testimonials in general, because I think it is extremely important to focus on sharing these practical results when trying to spread the 5BL in the world. There are many people who work with this knowledge for 10 years, 20 years, even 30 years, and have made very exciting experiences, but often these experiences weren't published, and so the rest of the world didn't have anything from it. And also some of these experiences are also shared in a single language. So also there's not very much advantage from it in the whole world. I try to change this by providing and developing the international collaboration archive, where we collect different experience reports and testimonials, and everybody can join this archive. So if you, no matter if you're a professional therapist or a private user, if you have made any exciting, fascinating observations with this knowledge, feel free to contact me so that we can provide these testimonials in this archive, at least in your mother language and also in English, so that everybody can read these experiences. I think there are different quality levels of experience reports. Most often are the observations of pure PCL phases. So you observe symptoms and have an idea of the cause and write this down. Of course, in these cases, the cause could not be validated, so it is not possible to determine if the cause was correct. So more meaningful are cases where the symptoms occurred multiple times, so that you were able to observe the symptoms and the SBS phases multiple times, so that you could validate your idea of the cause. And even more meaningful are cases where you had chronic symptoms, so for example a symptom over 10 years or decades or even more, and then found out with the knowledge of the 5BN what the cause was, changed something in your life, did specific actions, and then the symptoms disappeared. And well, the most valuable testimonials are those where you can predict specific symptoms, so that you could observe the SBS, and from this you know when or what specific symptoms will occur. And today I want to introduce some cases of these, I think, more valuable testimonials, mainly from the category of chronic symptoms. So resolving allergies is one part of this, and also from the prediction of symptoms. I want to start with my own case. I had a dust mite allergy and together with chronic asthma since childhood or babyhood for more than 30 years. And well, due to pregnancy complications, I was born 6 weeks premature via cesarean section, and had to spend a few weeks in an incubator. And in the first years there were many emergency situations due to respiratory distress where I had to go to the clinic, and there I got the diagnosis, dust mite allergy and asthma. And in fact I had often symptoms when I was in the presence of lots of dust, and I had to use these asthma inhalers to reduce the symptoms. And over the years the situation got better, and when I was an adult I only had to use the asthma inhaler a few times a year, and mostly there were no symptoms, but I think 3 to 4 times a year I had still these symptoms, and this situation was static over the last 10 years. Well, and then I started to work more intensively with the 5-BN and thought, well, I want to try to resolve this allergy and this asthma. And the symptoms showed me what kind of causal situation must have been, because the reaction was from the bronchial mucosa, and this is based on a scare-fright conflict or territorial fear conflict. And I must have had this as I was a very little child, so in infancy. So it was sure that I couldn't remember it, but I talked to my mother and asked her about my birth circumstances. And so I guessed that the situation was there in this incubator or at that time. And I heard that I laid down there on a fur, and that this was taken out, and probably in this fur there was lots of dust. And so I was there in this situation with lots of fear and separated from my mother, and there this dust or dust mites could have been saved as track. So you all know this, tracks are some kind of alarm circumstance which the organism saved, or the unconscious mind saved. So every time when I were in the presence of dust in the following years, my unconscious mind or my organism thought, okay, now the danger comes again, and started the same SPS of the bronchial mucosa. Yeah, with this situation in mind, I started to try a blind resolution. So a blind resolution because I couldn't remember the causal situation and only worked with some kind of guess or my ideas what might have been the causal situations. I did this together with my sister to make sure that I'm not alone when there would be any emergency situations. And I crawled under the bed where lots of dust was and took a few deep breaths and made myself sure that the situation was long time gone and that it cannot be happen in this type anymore, because now I'm an adult. There was a little baby. It is not possible that I can be separated from my mother in this way. I can only go to her or to anybody else when I'm separated. So there is not the possibility anymore that I can have this type of stress and this type of threatening anymore. And by making this clear to myself in the presence of dust, I resolved this allergy, because I had no reactions anymore in the situations. And from then on, for more than 10 years now, I had no more respiratory distress in the presence of dust. So my allergy and asthma was resolved with this very simple little experiment. And yeah, I think you can imagine how excited I was about this, and thought, wow, this is really fascinating. After this years-long suffering from the symptoms, now I did this simple, funny experiment, and all these symptoms are gone. Yeah, and so I thought, could this be reproduced? And I searched for another volunteer, and this one was not hard to find, because my wife also had an allergy. And this is the next case, her allergy to apples. Yeah, she reacted to apple juice, apple puree, and pure apples with diarrhea. And she already had an idea from what this situation or this reaction might come. And she already had this idea before we knew the 5BL. And the situation was as follows. Many years ago, during school, she was in an exchange program and went for a week or a few weeks to France to live with a very poor family. And one day they went outside and collected many windfall apples. And these apples had many moldy areas, worms in it, and she was, what are we doing with these disgusting apples? And they took them all in a bucket, went home and put them all in a pot, pureed them, and then this was the lunch. And yeah, you can imagine that she was very shocked in this situation and was disgusted of this lunch. But she was isolated there, could not speak the language very well, and well, forced herself to eat it. And that was the conflictive situation where she had to eat this harmful morsel, which she didn't want to have in her body. And when her body started to react with diarrhea to get rid of this harmful morsel. And from then on, apples were saved as track for this dangerous situation. Yeah, after talking about it, we thought, okay, what can we do for an experiment to make your unconscious mind aware that this situation cannot happen anymore in this form. And well, we did the following. She took an apple by herself, which looked very good. She cut it and made herself sure that there's no worm in it, there's no moldy area in it, and that it looks great, and that she really wants to eat this apple. And that it is not this situation from years ago where she was forced, more or less, to eat apples which she didn't want to. And that now there's a completely different situation, and that all apples she will eat now and in future, there she would have a choice if she would like to eat it or not. And by doing this, she could eat the apple, and from then on her allergy was gone, and she could also eat apple puree and drink apple juice a few times a year. Yes, again, we both were very fascinated, and yeah, this resolution was followed by a few more. In our family, we had also resolved an allergy to black pepper in the following months, and an allergy to coffee. And also in our study group, an allergy to hazelnuts. And all these experiences brought me to the idea to create a practical online course on that topic, where we were able to help not only a few single persons, but perhaps dozens or hundreds of people to resolve the allergy, and also to provide hundreds of testimonials and ask the people if they want to share their experience in type of video records or anything like that, so that we can just show to the world that it is worth deepening this knowledge, because here you see there are hundreds of cases where allergies were successfully resolved. And we also wanted to do research on the topic of tracks to find out if this resolution is possible in nearly any case, or if there are problems in many cases and why there are problems and so on. Yeah, and that's when we started our practical course, Resolving Allergies, from which I want to share some of our testimonials now. The first allergy here is from the category of pollen allergies. It is from a man in his 40s, and he had this allergy for about 20 years, and he reacted with the eyes, nose, and mainly the bronchial mucosa. So here the conflictive situation was a territorial fear or scare-fright conflict. In this case it was a territorial fear conflict, and he found the causal situation, which was a massive partnership conflict, which even was followed by a divorce. And he did the same thing. He made himself clear that this situation is long time gone, and that in the current or in the following spring season, nothing like that would happen anymore. I think he wasn't even in a partnership at that time. And well, it was the first year when the season started, and there were no more symptoms anymore. So he did the resolution before the season time, and then when the spring season and hay fever season started, there were no more symptoms anymore, and the following years there were also no more symptoms. The next case is from the category of animal hair allergies, so in this case a dog hair allergy. It is from a woman, 45 years old, and she had this allergy for about 40 years, so since she was a child. And she also reacted with her bronchial mucosa, so again we searched for this type of situation. In her case it was a scare-fright conflict. The situation was that she visited her grandma in all the vacations, or many vacations, and every year she was there, and there was a dog outside of the house which wasn't allowed to come inside, but she often went out secretly and gave the dog something to eat. And in one of these holidays the dog suddenly was extremely aggressive and wanted to bite her, and she could jump on the arms of her bigger cousin and was safe there, but she was absolutely shocked that this dog, which she knew for many years now, suddenly wanted to bite her. And this was the causal scare-fright conflict situation. And it was made even worse when she heard a few weeks later that this dog was shot because of his sudden aggressive behavior. Yeah, she started our practical course because they just got a little dog, a little sweet puppy in her family, and she don't wanted to give it away. And that's why she wanted to get rid of this allergy. And now she did the experiment, went to her dog and made herself clear that this little puppy won't bite her suddenly. So it's just not realistic that this dog would suddenly become extremely aggressive. With the other dog, this could happen because she hadn't seen him, the dog, for months. So she don't know what happened to him in the meantime. But when she now has this small puppy in her family and sees it all the time, there's no risk that anything like that would happen again anymore. And by making herself all these things clear, the allergy was resolved and she had no more symptoms, and now a new family member, this small dog, is with her. Now let's come to the type of food intolerances with the example of a zucchini intolerance. The woman in her 30s had this zucchini intolerance for 3 years now, and she reacted with diarrhea, flatulence, and cramps. And we found the situation very quickly. It was a situation where she read a newspaper article. There was a newspaper article here in Germany from a case of an old man who ate a zucchini from his garden and died from it. And all these hobby gardeners in Germany read this, and many were anxious that or afraid to eat zucchinis from that moment on, from their own garden. So this article had quite a big impact, and she also had the fear from that moment on that she shouldn't eat zucchini anymore, that there was a danger to get poisoned. And this is not a classical track, in my opinion. Every time she now tries to eat zucchini, it is more a recurrence. So the SBS is reactivated because she still has the fear to get poisoned. So what can be done in such a case? Because there is, or she perceived this real threat of being poisoned when eating a zucchini. Yeah, so in this case we try to reassess her point of views. So we ask her different questions so that you can get new perspectives on this topic. So for example, how often are such zucchinis poisonous? Which zucchini are at risk? Are these all zucchinis or only the one from your own garden? Were there perhaps unknown factors in the magazine that could have been responsible for the drama? It was just an article. Perhaps the zucchini had nothing to do with the death of the person, and it was only a coincidence. What possibilities do our body actually have to deal with poison in a real worst case scenario? Yeah, and from this she made a reassessment to deeply understand that the risk to react or the risk to be poisoned by a zucchini is virtually zero. Yeah, and from then on she also could eat zucchini in the normal way again. The next case is an allergy to insect bites. A woman in her 50s had this type of allergy for 2 years now. And the reaction was that she had hot flashes in her body and also very, very big swellings where the sting of the insects was. So the SBSs were the ones of the kidney collecting tubes and the thalamus. So she asked her if there was a situation where she had felt absolutely alone and where she couldn't see a way to get out of this threatening and terrible situation. And she found this situation a few years ago when she was together with her friends in nature, and there were lots of insects, and in this situation there suddenly she had everybody against herself and was absolutely feeling alone and was there with them and couldn't escape. And so these 2 SBSs were started, and all these insects and stings and bites she had at that moment were then saved as track for these SBSs. Yeah, so now by realizing that, she also realized that she already had resolved this dispute with them. So they had talked about it and they were friends again, and everything was fine again with her friends. And she made herself clear that there is no need to react anymore to these insect bites in this way, and additionally that these insect bites had nothing to do with this dispute with her friends. So these are 2 different things. So she convinced her unconscious mind that the insect bites are no alarm sign that anything like that would happen again. So after that, she reacted again in a normal way on the bites and stings from insects. The next allergy is a radiation allergy. So an allergy to smartphones and Wi-Fi. It was quite hard to resolve this one and to find the cause, but we managed it. It was a woman in her 50s, and she had this allergy for about 25 years. So from the point on, from the time when smartphones and handies started to spread in Germany. And her reaction was a very, very strong headache. So when she was in a room where anybody else had his mobile phone on, then these headaches started. And you can imagine that this is in nearly every situation where a few people come together. So this allergy was very, very strong in its limitations that she had in her life, because she couldn't go to any meeting, couldn't ride with a train, and so on and so on. Yeah, headaches are a difficult topic, at least for me. There are many possibilities, but we thought that in this case, the headaches come from the frontal fear or powerless conflict. So this typical migraine mechanism. So we searched for a situation 25 years ago where she had this type of frontal fear, something coming from the front that threatens her, and where she felt absolutely powerless and couldn't react and couldn't escape, and these types of feeling. And she remembered a situation where she was in the car and they drove about 3 hours, and her husband was driving the car, and he had a very sportly type of driving. So he narrowed the car and broke with a very short distance, and she sat in the passenger seat all the time and was absolutely afraid that now they would crash into the car in front of them. So all these 3 hours drive, she was in frontal fear, and she guessed that the new mobile phone from her husband was laying next to her all the time. So she was in this radiation area from the smartphone or handy mobile phone. Yeah, because this type of signal was very new to the body at that time. This was somehow saved as track And from that situation on, she reacted with these SBSs, which lead to headaches. And the most difficult thing here was that the mobile phone and the radiation is invisible. So you do not know when this track is there. So it was quite hard to find the causal situation here. Yeah, but with this idea of the causal situation, she started again her experiments. She laid the mobile phone next to her in a room for her alone, for her by herself, and made herself clear that she's not sitting in this car anymore, that there's not this situation where a car accident is coming soon, at least in her imagination. And yeah, by doing this a few times, the allergy was removed and she could be in the presence of mobile phones and Wi-Fi again without any symptoms anymore. And it was a big progress in her life quality, because she could participate in all these situations again from that moment on. The last allergy I want to introduce is not really an allergy, but it has the same mechanism. The tracks in this case were very strong emotions, so strong euphoria or tiredness or anxiety or being threatened. So when there's suddenly a threat somehow. And when someone did this patella tendon test, physician or doctor, then he also had very strong symptoms. That was a man in his 40s, and he had these tracks, this allergy for 20 years. And the reaction he had were epilepsy-like symptoms. So his arms did cramps like this. There were cramps in his back and neck, and he also had to do such sounds. So there were different muscles involved in these epilepsy-like symptoms. Yeah, so we searched for a situation more than 20 years ago where he had a very strong motor conflict. So somehow a situation with movement where she wasn't able to escape, where she wasn't allowed to escape, something like that. And we found a situation where he was driving on the street and felt very well. There was this kind of euphoria when driving, and suddenly he realized that he lost control of the car. So it was not possible to steer anymore, and he frontally crashed. So this was the situation, and it is very exciting to see what tracks were saved in this situation. The tracks were these strong emotions from euphoria to fear or panic. It was this tension on the tendon under the knee when he pressed on the brake to stop the car but wasn't able to stop it, and was this sudden threatening when he realized, now I've lost the control of the car. And the SBSs were this loss of control feeling, so he couldn't steer anymore to hold the car on the road. He couldn't hold himself in the seat, so when he crashed into something, he comes forward. So the muscles in the back and the neck were involved. And he had this scare-fright conflict of the bronchial muscles. So these were involved with these sounds as well. Yeah, when we found out this situation, he worked the same way with these awarenesses to make himself clear that when he was threatened, when there are strong emotions, there's no danger that there will be an accident at that moment. So every time he had these emotions, he made these things aware. I think he also said to friends that they should threaten him to also make himself clear in the same situation that there is no car accident coming now. And yeah, he managed to resolve this connection. And also that he was most afraid of this patellar tendon test, because after that one, the strongest symptoms occurred in the past. But after a few weeks, he tried this experiment as well, and there were no more symptoms anymore. So all these epilepsy-like symptoms were resolved. Yes, that was an overview of some of the interesting cases from our practical course, Resolving Allergies. Before we come to an end, I also want to share one case of the prediction of symptoms. This case is from our own family, from the year 2022. The boy, he was in his first grade, heard that he was supposed to do a presentation in front of the class, and he was worried for months because of this upcoming event. But before this was his time to do the presentation, they also worked in a group on something and were supposed to present this at the end of the week. After the presentation, the next morning he woke up with a cough and a sore throat. So that was no surprise for us. It was no surprise for us, because it was absolutely logical that after this behavior of territorial fear, the laryngeal mucosa reacted and the conflict, the SBS, was resolved in this case. But we realized that he was still very annoyed because of his own presentation in front of the group. So it was clear that again this SBS was active, and so we were able to predict that the day after his presentation, again the same symptoms would occur. The presentation was then on a Thursday. So by knowing that this SBS was active, we were quite sure that he wouldn't be able to go to the school the next day. So we already could prepare everything for this case. And it happens exactly like that. He did his presentation, everything went fine, and the next morning he woke up again with a very strong sore throat and coughing. This held on for a few nights very strongly, so he woke up several times and took some honey and hot tea. And then for the next days and weeks, it became better and better. This was quite funny, and it is exactly this way in other cases when you really are quite sure that at a specific time or after a specific event, these symptoms will start, and you know this already in advance. We also had the chance to validate and predict it a second time, because in his next year, again he should do a presentation, but this time he wasn't afraid anymore, and it wasn't a problem for him because now he had, he was prepared for it and know that he was able to do it. So after this presentation, there were no more symptoms. But a few children from his class were supposed to do a presentation to present the materials from their class in front of all parents. And he wasn't chosen to do it, so he was quite relaxed. But the day before this presentation, another child was ill, and so he had to jump in and he had to do this presentation. And at that moment he was quite shocked again, because he wasn't prepared for it and he never had done a presentation in front of all these parents. So this was another level. And from his behavior we realized directly that his SBS from the laryngeal mucosa had started again. And so we were able to predict that the next day, the day after the presentation, again he would have the same symptoms. Yeah, that's how it happened. He did this presentation and it was fine again. And the next morning he woke up with a strong cough and a sore throat again. And we also could predict this time how long the symptoms would occur, because we knew exactly when the SBS was reactivated and when it resolved. So it was about 1 day. So we also knew that the symptoms would be about 1 day, and so only a short period of time. Yeah, and after this 1 day, the symptoms vanished and everything was fine again. Yeah, in the report archive, there are 2 more prediction cases. So if you're interested in that, there's one case with the sting of the heart, where we predicted the last occurrence, and another case of a prediction of a one-time spasm from the hand after the analysis of the brain CT of the person. And if you're interested in the newsletter, there I also share some additional cases of the resolution of chronic symptoms. There's one animation video, and these cases I share there are like the animation videos, like the video series. It is one case of a resolution of a pepper allergy, another case of the prediction of an acute sudden back pain, but years in advance. So the prediction when that event would happen, the next day these strong back pain would start. And the prediction of a one-time epileptic seizure in a child. The prediction cases are also available in text form in the archive. Yeah, so thank you very much for your interest in our cases, and good luck with the analysis of your own cases and symptoms.
We are all grateful for emergency medicine, which is excellent in life-threatening situations. But what about the medical treatment of disease, specifically the understanding of the cause of disease? This video series explores a precise, scientific model for understanding at a root level changes in the human organism commonly referred to as disease. This understanding makes new care strategies for a wide variety of diseases possible, for common illnesses like a sore throat, as well as chronic illness like diabetes, or even life-threatening diseases like cancer. All those interested in this topic are warmly invited to this introduction, although it is likely that a period of time will be necessary to integrate this new understanding of sickness and health into your thinking. Until now, we have not had a plausible explanation for why a particular person has a specific symptom at a specific time in their lives. We asked ourselves, why me? Why now? Why this? It was clear that symptom-based therapies were developed and administered almost independent of the personal circumstances of individual cases. By knowing the meaningful special biological programs and the first natural law of biology, we and our tumor patient now understand exactly why me, why now, why this symptom. All bodily functions adapt to external circumstances on a daily basis. For example, we sweat and our pulse rate
empezará a latir más rápido. Si nos ponemos al sol, nos pondremos morenos. Si hacemos ejercicios de musculazione,
i nostri muscoli crescono se li spingiamo regolarmente al limite. Tuttavia, altri cambiamenti a livello
Bei anderen
cellulare
Funktions- und Zellveränderungen spricht man dagegen von Krankheit, weil hierin bisher kein Sinn erkannt wurde. Durch die
Изучая
neue
новую
Medizin
медицину, мы понимаем, что ничто в организме не является неправильным или ложным, что все изменения
וכי כל
являются
השינויים
частью...
אינם אלא חלק מתוכנית ביולוגית משמעותית מיוחדת של הטבע, או בראשי תיבות, טב"ם.